My girlfriend Selena insists her male friend Todd sees her as just a friend, yet after a weekend sleepover he sent her messages like, "I don't want to be friendzoned and I eat pussy till my jaw hurts. I'm torn between my gut and my feelings, what's next?" I apologize in advance. This is quite lengthy, but I attempted to include all the details because I know how Reddit often leads to people asking clarifying questions that nobody ever sees answers to in the comments. Therefore, here is every detail. For context, I am a 26-year-old female who has been dating a woman, whom I will refer to as Selena, for over 6 months. We are not officially girlfriend and girlfriend because 1, this is my first queer experience, 2, she has never been in a relationship before, and 3, we both have many responsibilities in our lives, including work, friends, and medical issues. However, we are doing well and have had serious conversations indicating that we are definitely working towards a relationship. We are both taking it slow to avoid overwhelming one another. Selena has a male friend named Todd. Todd is one of the most eccentric and unattractive men I have ever encountered. It is important to note that I am a bisexual woman, so I mention this from the perspective of someone who is familiar with and attracted to men. I assure you this is relevant to my later points. Selena claims that he is her best friend. They constantly send each other Snapchat messages. While together, especially as our relationship has deepened and become more intimate, she hardly messages him at all. One of my first indicators that something was amiss with Todd was when she shared a message he sent her in which she apologized for responding late. His reply was, "Oh, I figured because you never respond when you are with homegirl." Both Todd and I are black, so his choice of words immediately raised my suspicions as it sounded rather bitter. Then Selena informed me that she would be hosting a friend for the weekend, and surprise, it was him. She lives with a roommate in a 2-bedroom apartment, by the way. She told me she would give him the bed while she would sleep on the couch. This raised another alarm for me as I am Caribbean, and culturally it is inappropriate for a man to sleep in a woman's bed, not to mention, he should have offered to sleep on the couch in my opinion. All of this felt strange to me, but I attributed it to the fact that people have different levels of intimacy with friends. I assumed Selena must have been friends with him for many years since he is not a college friend like her roommate. On the day following his first night staying over, I was out with a friend when Selena sent me a picture of him in her pajamas, saying he had forgot his pajamas for the weekend, so she had to lend him her pajama pants and shirt. I found it extremely odd that a man would forget his pajamas when they had been planning this visit for weeks. I later learned that he lives only an hour and a half away from her, so why the need for a weekend-long sleepover? At this point, my friend who was with me chimed in that the whole situation felt strange and inappropriate, crossing boundaries. I was somewhat rationalizing it by saying Selena had never been in a relationship before and had primarily engaged in casual encounters, so she might not yet be accustomed to modifying her behavior while dating someone. Additionally, since Selena and I are not officially together yet, it feels inappropriate for me to question a long-time friendship. Fast forward to the next evening when she came to spend the night. While we were driving to a store, she talked about her weekend with Todd and I asked how they met. Selena told me they connected on Hinge 2 years ago. He liked her first and she was just passing time, so she matched with him, but they quickly realized they would be better off as friends. She friend-zoned him initially, and he claimed he would not be interested in her because he thinks she is batshit crazy. I fell silent for a moment before responding that I was judging her choice of friends because I wondered why she would even match with a man who looks like him. I understand that I might come off as shallow, and maybe I am, but he appears so unkempt, like one of those men who does not shower, asks women for hugs, and throws tantrums about how nice guys finish last. The atmosphere became somewhat awkward, which she noticed, and she continued adding that she would never be interested in him, etc. The following night, during another conversation, I brought it up again. I explained that I was trying to assess our compatibility regarding boundaries and other aspects because, to me, a boundary is a personal statement and not something one should dictate to a partner. It seems that Selena has very relaxed boundaries with her friends and those around her, and I do not want to ask her to change if she does not see an issue. If that were the case, it would indicate that we would not work well together. I used the situation with Todd as an example, explaining that I find it peculiar to have a sleepover under the circumstances and that it is not something I would be comfortable with. She attempted to reassure me further, explaining that she had slept over at his apartment before when they planned to attend an anime convention the following morning. I find that very different since there was a specific activity involved, making it easier logistically, whereas this present situation was just about spending a weekend lounging around the house, which feels especially intimate. Selena also explained that initially when they matched, they discussed anime, and when they met, she made it clear they were just hanging out and not on a date, so there were no expectations. She mentioned they hung out about 5 times before he finally expressed that it felt like it was giving friendship vibes. She enthusiastically agreed, and since then they have remained friends. I then remarked that he is attracted to her, but she set the boundary with him, which does not mean he would stop being attracted to her. She acknowledged this because his previous love interest expressed similar concerns, but she insisted that it was purely platonic, adding that he flinches away if they accidentally touch and thinks she is crazy and would never want to pursue a relationship with her. I countered with something she had mentioned before, asking, "But didn't you say he has issues and would sleep with anyone who consents?" Thus, it seems that the only thing preventing him is her lack of interest, not his disinterest. If given the chance, he would undoubtedly sleep with her, and that does not reflect true friendship. Rather, it suggests he is simply biding his time. Selena replied, "No, he is complicated and has issues," and she reassured me that she understands my perspective. We then returned to discussing another boundary issue with her female roommate, which was the other example I provided. The conversation essentially concluded with me stating that she might perceive my expectations regarding what is and is not acceptable in our relationship as overbearing due to her current boundaries, or lack thereof, with friends. I felt she might always meet me where I stand because I am unwilling to compromise on certain key issues and maintain stricter boundaries than her, which might make her feel constrained or controlled, though that is not my intention. Selena explained that if I bring up something that bothers me, she would respect it and be open to discussing how we can reach an understanding. To me, it felt like a non-answer, indicating we can talk about it, but I would continue to explain my perspective, making it unlikely for me to change. My best friend has a different viewpoint and believes this indicates she is open to compromise. I also have a male best friend, and not only would I never behave as she does, but he would also never allow it. It would be uncomfortable for both of us. I even called him to discuss the situation, and he agrees that it is problematic. Both my best friend and I believe that Selena's relationship with Todd is inappropriate because it crosses boundaries. He is clearly still interested in her, as evidenced by him forgetting his pajamas, sleeping in her bed, and the shady comment about her not responding when she is with homegirl, me. Moreover, Selena is genuinely much better looking than he is and is in a better position in life, which means she is an attractive option for him. He is quite strange, and my friend pointed out that men like this can be particularly unsettling since they could become dangerous at any moment. However, from Selena's perspective, she insists he sees her only as a friend, which is supported by the fact that he is dating other girls. I do not want to push the issue too much, but it weighs heavily on me, and I know that if we reach an official stage, I will need to establish the boundary that I am not comfortable with sleepovers between them. I would not continue in a relationship with her if she insists on maintaining that arrangement. However, I also feel that if I express this, it might come off as manipulative. Part of me thinks this should be obvious, but another part understands that she is not particularly observant and lacks discernment in general. Moreover, she has never been in a relationship before, so she has always done as she pleases without considering someone else's feelings. Perhaps she deserves the opportunity to discover herself in a relationship. But again, if she truly valued me, this would seem like a basic matter of respect. I genuinely like her, and aside from this and one other situation with her roommate, it has been wonderful. Another point is that I am typically very logical and do not get jealous. Instead, I experience discomfort when I feel someone is straying or pushing my boundaries regarding monogamy. I have strong feelings for her, more than I have for most of the people I have dated before, and I do not want to reach a point of no return where I become emotionally closed off toward her. We have shared a deep level of intimacy that goes beyond the physical. She brings me comfort and a sense of calm. Fast forward 2 weeks. Todd ended up sending her TikTok and Instagram messages containing comments like he did not want to be friend-zoned, wanted to lay the pipe, or that he eats pussy until his jaw hurts, along with calling her beautiful. All of this occurred after the sleepover. I only discovered these messages when she showed me funny texts from all her friends on her phone, seemingly reluctant to scroll through his thread. I felt compelled to check ahead because my instincts were telling me something was off. Furthermore, I found out they had actually slept in the same bed, which I sincerely doubt was at her behest. Regardless, it is troubling. So yes, I was correct about everything I suspected. It turned out he had also spoken negatively about me to her, calling me a nerd, and he had been sending her suggestive messages. We discussed this extensively, and initially she intended to ensure they slept in separate spaces during future sleepovers. However, after I asserted that this was a non-negotiable issue for me, we agreed there would be no more sleepovers at all. She also committed to stopping the suggestive messages and taking a 2-week break to solidify the new boundaries. She has yet to share how that conversation went and wants the 2 weeks to decompress before we revisit the topic. I honestly suspect that it did not go well because if it had, she would easily share it. So she will update me in a couple of weeks. We also made our relationship official, as this was our only issue. I am relieved she listened to me since this is my primary concern, and I genuinely believe we could have a long-term partnership. However, I still harbor doubts about the fact that it took so long for her to appreciate my point of view, and that her initial solution to address the situation was rather lax. They also have a pre-planned trip to the United Kingdom for 2 weeks, which stresses me out because it seems likely that his recent escalation was to make a move on her during the trip. Despite this, she even invited me to join them, which would serve two important purposes. One, it would allow me to observe their dynamic firsthand because perhaps he will learn to respect boundaries and not cause me discomfort any longer. And two, it would demonstrate that she genuinely wants to establish that she is not romantically interested in him or entertaining any of his potential advances. Yet my intuition suggests that this issue will not simply disappear, especially given how adamantly she insisted he was harmless and did not mean it that way, even though she agreed to reset the boundaries. What should my next steps be? Story 2. My husband stopped working after a breakdown, leaving me alone to manage our finances while battling my own complex PTSD. I can't deal with finances, he says, while I'm drowning in bills. How do I get him to take responsibility without triggering a meltdown? So here is the situation, and I apologize in advance, this is quite complicated. To provide some background, both I, female in my 30s and my husband, male in his 40s, have autism and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. We have been together for over a decade and married for nearly 4 years. More than a year ago, I experienced a mental breakdown, which I now understand was a result of complex post-traumatic stress disorder following a period of intense stress, and I required hospitalization. Things were extremely challenging, and I have no doubt my husband, male, 40 years old, was affected, especially as I was experiencing severely distressing psychosis. I am still undergoing some pretty intense treatment, so I remain somewhat vulnerable and prone to having episodes, but I am gradually getting stronger. At least that was the case. In the interim, my husband, who had his own issues to confront, not taking into account the impact on him from my breakdown, continued to work and did not seek professional help. One reason for this is that he feared that addressing those issues would lead to him needing to take time off work, as his employer's sickness policy is terrible, and as you know, we need the income. Therefore, he chose to keep working until he had a mental breakdown at work at the end of last year. The way his employer treated him was, in our opinion and our lawyer's opinion, clearly disability discrimination. That is a different story entirely. However, he has engaged lawyers to represent him in a lawsuit against his employers and has not worked since, meaning he has not received any pay since his breakdown. He also has not sought out any other employment, which I understand is in his best interest from both a legal and health perspective. Currently, I am facing several issues. One, I hate to say it, but my husband does not contribute much around the house. He may tidy the kitchen in the mornings and feed our cats, but that is about it. Therefore, not only am I the sole person working and paying for everything, but I am also managing most of the chores. I have a physical disability, so this increased workload is taking a toll on my body. I already bear the majority of the mental load as I am the household manager. My husband claims he cannot contribute more due to his mental health issues, and he is also unable to discuss chores or their allocation for the same reason. He has essentially spent the last 6 months playing video games and doing little else, except for occasional meetings with lawyers. 2, we can barely get by on my salary alone, for which I am extremely grateful if we budget carefully. I have significant money anxiety due to past trauma, but I have taken steps to better organize our finances. Unfortunately, my husband refuses to have a serious discussion about money because it is triggering for him. This also means that he delays informing me about the latest legal bill until a final demand for payment has been made. Additionally, he withdraws money from our joint bank account designated for bills, often purchasing cigarettes and snacks without informing me, which has resulted in multiple occasions where our mortgage provider has sent threatening messages because there was insufficient money in the account for that month's mortgage payment. I have asked my husband to inform me when he makes such withdrawals and or to keep an itemized list, but he says he does not want to stress me out. He also expresses feelings of shame and anxiety at the thought of maintaining a list. I offered to give him pocket money, but the idea disgusts him. 3, we were previously excellent at communicating with each other, but any attempts to discuss serious topics now result in him becoming depressed and withdrawing, refusing to engage in conversation. I am trying to be as compassionate and supportive as possible, but it often feels like my efforts are ineffective and there is no progress on his end. While he has recently started therapy, which is a positive development, he seeks me out for immediate support when he feels low or is experiencing a panic attack, even during my working hours. 4, whenever he encounters any issues in his day-to-day life, he delegates them to me. At one point, he tried to transfer all responsibility for handling his legal matters to me, but I simply cannot feasibly do this while managing my own job. Otherwise, I am responsible for his medical appointments, completing paperwork, and so on. I am exhausted, but if I do not take care of these matters, he accuses me of not being supportive. 5. Things are just not enjoyable anymore. I think I have laughed 5 times in the last 6 months. My husband either experiences panic attacks or becomes irritable if I suggest we engage in activities together, so I have stopped making plans for the weekend or beyond. Quite frankly, I am too fatigued to do anything anyway. I do not know what to do. I can feel myself mentally slipping. Outside of my husband and the limited roles of my therapist, doctor, and social services, I lack a support network. While I completely empathize with my husband's mental health struggles, it often feels as if his mental health takes absolute precedence over mine, yet he is not taking any steps to improve his situation. I feel like this is fine, cartoon dog. What should I do? How can we address these issues without him retreating, having an autistic meltdown, or reacting in some other unpleasant way? How can I assert that I simply cannot handle everything on my own? Summary: my husband has been in a deep state of despair for the past 6 months and is draining our finances. He assigns almost all responsibilities regarding financial and household management, along with his emotional and physical needs, solely to me. This is not sustainable, and we urgently need to talk about it, but any attempts to have a serious conversation are shut down because they are too difficult for him.